It began on the ancient alien world of Dravanes, a planet covered in golden deserts, storm-blue oceans, and mountains carved with thousands of glowing runes. Home to the legendary galactic myth library where millions of ancient stories were stored like sleeping memories waiting to be awakened, stories about vanished empires, forgotten wars, cosmic monsters, impossible machines, and myths so old that even the galaxy's wisest scholars refused to speak them aloud. And among all those tales, the one myth that frightened every species the most was the one written by humans long before the Senate even existed. A single haunting sentence carved into an unbreakable stone slab. When the silent human warship wakes, the universe will bend. Yet over thousands of years this myth turned into a joke, something children whispered while playing, something old warriors laughed about when drunk, something scholars dismissed as childish imagination. Because the galaxy believed humans were peaceful, harmless, ordinary, too gentle to build anything dangerous, too emotional to create anything powerful, too simple to be a threat, and so the myth faded into dusty corners of the library and the galaxy forgot, until the day the sky over Dravanes changed. On that morning, the Galactic Senate gathered to discuss strange warnings coming from the edge of deep space. Warnings recorded as strange pulses, rhythmic signals, long waves of energy with no source, no meaning, no pattern, and some alien leaders argued that the warnings matched the old human myth, but the Senate laughed and ignored it, calling it superstition, calling it nonsense, calling humans dramatic storytellers who loved making everything sound bigger than it was. The Senate laughed, until the sky went dark. It began with a small flicker, like a star blinking or a shadow passing in front of a distant moon. But then the flicker stretched, widened, deepened, and the bright green Dravanes sky slowly dimmed into a shade of night even though the planet's twin sun still burned brightly. And as the darkness thickened, a cold wind swept across the desert. The ocean stilled as if afraid to move, and animals across the planet fell silent. The Senate guards rushed to the balcony overlooking the open sky, and when their scanners activated, every alien heart froze in fear because above the planet, half hidden behind clouds and starlight, something massive moved, slow, silent, cold, casting a shadow large enough to cover mountains. At first the aliens thought it was a moon drifting too close, but Dravanes only had one moon and this was not it. Then they thought it was a giant asteroid, but asteroids did not move like this, did not glide with precision, did not hum with a deep, ancient vibration that made the ground tremble. Then they thought it was an enemy warship, but no empire in the galaxy had ever built anything even close to this size. When the scanners finally locked on the object, the reading appeared on every screen at the same time, and for the first time in thousands of years, the entire Galactic Senate fell into a silence so deep it felt like the stars themselves stopped breathing. The object was not a moon. It was not a station. It was not a planet. It was a warship, a human warship, massive, old, silent, and waking up. The aliens stared in disbelief as the warship drifted closer, its metallic surface covered in ancient human symbols glowing faintly like dust-covered stars. Its hull so enormous it looked like a sleeping giant built from mountains and oceans and dead suns. Its engines quiet but alive with a low pulse like the beating of a heart older than civilization. A single alien whispered, "Impossible?" Another whispered, "It cannot be real." Another whispered, "Humans cannot build this?" But the myth carved into the library stone echoed louder than all their voices combined, reminding them of a truth the galaxy chose to forget. If the warship ever woke, the universe would bend. As the shadow grew larger, the Senate guards activated emergency alarms. Soldiers filled the hall, scientists scrambled to scan again, and scholars ran through the corridors searching for the ancient human tablet that most of them had mocked their entire lives. The Senate's supreme chancellor, a large-scaled creature with 6 glowing eyes, shouted for calm, but even his voice shook with fear. Outside, the warship slowly tilted, revealing the markings on its side, engraved in deep, ancient human script. No one could translate it fully, but every species recognized one symbol, the old Terran sun, an emblem humans had abandoned long ago. The ship rotated again, its hull plates shifting like giant stone slabs awakening from sleep, sending vibrations across the air that shook every building on Dravanes. The oceans beneath rippled. The clouds twisted into spirals. The sky darkened further. The myth library, designed to withstand the collapse of entire mountains, shook violently as old scrolls and crystal books flew from their shelves. Deep inside the library, an elderly archivist discovered that the human stone tablet, the one carrying the ancient myth, was glowing brighter than it ever had. The archivist rushed to the Senate hall, holding the slab in trembling hands, shouting, the myth is waking!" But the Senate barely heard him because outside, the warship exhaled. A deep rumbling sound that echoed like thunder stretched across galaxies. A sound that felt alive, aware, intelligent. Aliens clutched their chests as the vibration passed through them. Some fell to their knees. Some screamed. Some pressed their hands over their ears even though the sound wasn't coming from the sky. It was coming from inside their minds. The warship was communicating, trying to speak, trying to remember, trying to wake. Suddenly, the warship's engines flickered, sending ripples of blue light across its metallic skin, like veins filling with energy. The aliens watched in terror as the ship slowly lowered itself toward Dravanes, stopping just above the atmosphere. Its size so massive it dwarfed the entire capital city. The ground shook, buildings cracked, the air heated, and then, the warship opened its eyes. Two enormous circular structures on the front of the ship lit up with blinding white light, scanning the entire planet, sweeping across oceans, deserts, forests, cities, searching for something. The scanners in the Senate read the energy output and froze. The warship was thousands of years old, older than most species in the Senate, older than the Senate itself. How had humans built this? When had they built it? Why had they built it? And why was it waking now? The myth library stone slab suddenly cracked, splitting down the middle, and the archivist fell backward as a small glowing message appeared on its surface. The Senate Chancellor grabbed the piece and read it aloud, his voice shaking. It said, "Do not run. Do not hide. Do not attack." The Senate looked at each other, horrified. What does that mean? Is it a warning? Is the ship dangerous? Is something coming? But before anyone could answer, the sky screamed. Or at least that's what it sounded like. An inhuman cry stretching across the stars, echoing through the atmosphere, shaking windows, shattering crystals, sending birds fleeing in every direction. Every alien looked up. A tear, a literal tear, in the sky appeared above the warship, like someone slicing open the fabric of space. A black swirling hole cracked open, glowing with pulses of red and purple energy. Something was coming through. The warship reacted instantly. It turned, facing the tear, its ancient weapons glowing for the first time in 10,000 years. The Senate froze as they realized something horrifying. The warship was not waking to attack Dravanes. It was waking to defend it. The myth wasn't a warning about humans. It was a warning about something worse. Something the warship was built to fight. Something the galaxy had forgotten. And the moment the tear in the sky widened and the first dark shape crawled out, screeching, hungry, impossibly large, the Senate finally understood. Humans had not created myths. They had created instructions. Instructions for survival. And the day those instructions were needed had arrived. The warship roared. The creature screamed back. And the universe tilted as the myth became real. The moment the sky ripped open above Dravanes and that monstrous dark shape crawled out of the glowing tear, the entire planet seemed to stop breathing, every alien heart froze, every creature hid, every star in the sky dimmed as if afraid to witness what was coming, and the ancient human warship, silent for thousands of years, responded with a deep, echoing pulse that shook the entire atmosphere. A pulse filled with memory, duty, sorrow, and something much older than fear itself, because this warship remembered things the galaxy never knew, battles the Senate never recorded, enemies so ancient that even the myth library did not have their names, and as the dark creature emerged fully into the Dravanes sky, its massive body dripping with shadow like liquid midnight, its tendrils stretching across the clouds like long, bony arms, its mouth a swirling pit of lightless hunger, the aliens collapsed under the pressure of its presence. Feeling their minds tremble, their bones vibrate, their lungs tighten as if the darkness itself was trying to suffocate them. The creature released a soundless scream, A wave of psychic force that cracked the Senate hall windows and sent dozens of alien soldiers to the floor unconscious. And in that terrifying moment, everyone realized that no fleet in the galaxy could survive such a thing. No empire had weapons strong enough to harm it. No planet had defenses strong enough to resist it, and the only thing standing between Dravanis and complete extinction was the silent human warship that everyone mocked for centuries. The warship tilted upward, glowing brighter, its ancient runic lights burning like the veins of a waking giant, and Admiral Reeve, watching from a distant observation platform, felt a tear slip down his cheek because he knew what this ship was, what it represented, what it had been built for, and the pain of knowing humanity fought this nightmare alone thousands of years ago returned to him like a knife in his chest. The creature lunged toward the planet, its giant claw-like tendrils reaching down as if trying to grab the surface itself, and Dravani shook with a quake that toppled towers and split the desert floor. But before the darkness could touch the world, the warship moved. Faster than any species had ever seen something that size move. Slamming its colossal armored front into the creature with the force of a falling star, sending a shock wave sweeping across the sky that lit up the atmosphere in blinding blue light. The creature recoiled, screeching silently, its body folding and twisting unnaturally, and for a moment the aliens thought the warship had killed it. But then the beast reformed itself, stretching tall again, its body pulsing with rage as its tendrils lashed around the warship, trying to crush it like a predator wrapping around prey. The myth library's floating crystals shattered as another psychic scream ripped through the air, and the old archivist who carried the slab fell to his knees, holding his head, whispering, "The myth? It didn't lie, it didn't lie." While the Senate, helpless and trembling, clung to the railings as they watched the warship struggle against the monstrous weight of the creature's grip. The warship's hull creaked like ancient mountains grinding together, its metal shifting, glowing, fighting, as if it were alive, as if it felt pain, as if it remembered dying before, and Admiral Reeve pressed a hand against the observation glass, whispering brokenly, come on, wake up more. You're not fully awake yet." And as if hearing him across the void, the warship's core lit up with a surge of power that roared through the sky, blasting the creature back, tearing several of its tendrils to ash, and sending shockwaves that rippled across space like waves on a cosmic ocean. The aliens gasped as they watched the warship rotate, its ancient weapons rising like glowing towers, energy building inside them until the atmosphere shook with raw force. And when the creature charged again with a furious lunge, jaws opening wide to swallow the warship whole, the human vessel unleashed a pulse of white-blue energy straight into its chest, punching a hole clean through its swirling body. The blast so powerful it carved a tunnel of cleared sky behind the beast. But the creature didn't die. It reformed again, stronger, angrier, its shadow-like flesh twisting into new shapes, its tendrils forming sharp blades, its eyes glowing with a void-like hunger that seemed to whisper into every mind, "You cannot stop me." The Senate cried out in pure terror, and even Admiral Reeve felt his breath shake as he whispered, "That's only one of them," because he knew this creature was the smallest of the old nightmares, the scouts of a greater swarm, the first drop of a coming storm, and if Dravanis fell tonight, the entire galaxy would follow. The creature surged forward again, and this time it slammed into the warship with enough force to crack mountains, its claws dragging along the hull, tearing deep into the ancient metal, sparks raining like falling stars, and Reeve screamed, "No!" as he felt the warship's pain echo through him. A pain so raw it felt like losing a part of his soul, but the warship refused to break, refused to surrender, refused to let the myth become a death sentence. And with a deep thunderous roar it threw its engines to full power for the first time in thousands of years, flames and energy erupting behind it like a newborn sun awakening, and it pushed back against the creature with pure force, centimeter by centimeter, heartbeat by heartbeat, as the sky around them cracked with lightning and the air tore apart from the pressure of two ancient beings fighting for control. The Senate watched with tears streaming down their faces, some from fear, some from awe, some from shame for ever doubting humanity, and the old archivist whispered through shaking breaths, "This is what the myth meant. The warship is not a weapon, it is a guardian." And as the battle raged in the dark sky of Dravanis, with the creature's roars echoing through every living mind and the warship's light burning brighter than stars. One truth became clear to the entire galaxy. The myth wasn't describing a threat. It was describing hope. Hope that humanity left behind for the day the galaxy would face the nightmare it always ignored. Hope that had now awakened. Hope that was fighting. Hope that refused to die as the battle tore through the Dravani sky, with lightning cracking open the clouds and the monstrous shadow creature twisting its endless tendrils around the ancient human warship. Every living being on the planet felt the same suffocating fear. The fear that the legend was not just a story but a warning humanity tried to leave behind before disappearing. And now that warning had come true, unfolding in front of the entire galaxy. Yet, in the middle of the chaos, something strange began to happen. Something the Senate had never seen, because as the warship struggled against the creature's crushing grip, its glowing symbols, thousands of ancient human runes, began to shift and rearrange themselves, moving across its hull like liquid light, forming words, forming memories, forming pieces of a story no one alive had ever heard. And Admiral Reeve, still watching from the distant observation tower, felt the air tighten around him as those symbols awakened old data locked deep within his mind, data passed down through generations of the hidden human guardians who kept the truth alive in silence. And his breath caught when he realized what the ship was showing. It was remembering its last moments before sleeping. The symbols flashed images. Humanity's first civilization building the warship on a dying Earth. Humans with tired faces and wounded bodies working day and night as the sky above them tore apart from the same kind of darkness now attacking Dravanis. Entire human fleets burning as they tried to stop the swarm. Children crying in underground shelters while their parents whispered that they would protect them no matter the cost. And then the final image. A lone human commander standing inside the warship's core chamber, touching its glowing heart with trembling fingers while whispering, "Guard them, even after we are gone." Reeve felt tears burning his eyes as he whispered, "You still remember." And at that same moment the warship released a deep humming sound, softer than before, filled with emotion, almost like a voice trying to comfort him across time and space. But the creature wasn't done. With a furious roar it reformed its shredded body again, bigger now, darker now, as if absorbing pieces of the warship's energy and growing stronger with every hit, and it slammed its tendrils onto the warship's hull, dragging it downward toward the Dravani surface. The pressure so great the atmosphere caught fire, streaks of red and gold flames wrapping around them as the two giants crashed through the sky like falling stars. The Senate screamed. People on the planet ran for shelters. Entire cities shook under the impact of the battle happening above them. And the myth library itself began to crack open, ancient stones splitting as the force of the battle shook its very foundations. The warship tried to stabilize, but the creature pushed harder, its claws digging deeper, tearing through armor that had survived 10,000 years, and Reeve felt each tear like someone ripping open his own skin, because the warship was not just metal and circuits. It was alive in a way no species understood, a living memory of the humanity that built it, a living promise to protect every world that could not protect itself, and watching it suffer felt like watching a guardian die. But the pain awakened something else inside the ship. Something older, something deeper, something the myth never mentioned. The runes across the hull glowed brighter, turning from soft white into burning gold, and the warship let out a roar so powerful the sky turned white. A roar that wasn't sound but pure energy, blasting the creature backward and sending shockwaves that flattened entire mountain ranges. For a moment, the creature actually stumbled, its body flickering like a candle struggling to stay lit. And in that moment of weakness the warship charged upward, engines blazing like twin suns, ripping apart layers of the creature's shadowy flesh and exploding through its center like a spear of light piercing the heart of darkness. The Senate hall shook, screens flickered, alarms wailed. But the aliens watched in awe as the warship soared upward, its entire body glowing with a golden fire humanity once used to defend the galaxy. The creature regenerated again, this time slower, weaker, but its eyes glowed with pure hatred, a hatred so ancient and deep it made every alien feel sick inside, and it lunged once more, determined to crush the warship no matter what the cost. Reeve slammed his hands against the panel. "You can't keep doing this, you're not fully awake yet. Your core will burn out. Please stop, please." But the warship didn't stop. It didn't hesitate. It didn't fear death. It had one purpose: protect Dravanis until the end. The warship pushed forward, meeting the creature head-on in a collision that split the clouds, cracked the atmosphere, and lit the entire planet with a blinding golden flash. And in that burning, shaking, world-shattering moment, every alien realized something they had never understood before. The myth was not about a warship that would bend the universe. It was about a warship built from humanity's grief, humanity's courage, humanity's sacrifice, humanity's love, and that love was powerful enough to stand against the darkness. The creature shrieked as parts of its form were torn away by the warship's golden energy, and the warship surged through it like a blade, ripping a hole through its center, making it collapse into a swirling storm of shredded shadow. The skies of Dravanis lit up with lightning shaped like claws and wings as the creature twisted and screamed, trying to pull itself together again. But the warship, glowing brighter than ever, refused to let it recover. It chased the collapsing mass of darkness through the upper atmosphere, its engines roaring, its runes blazing, its weapons firing beam after beam of white-blue energy into the creature's core. And as the shadow began to break apart, fading into the void, the entire planet witnessed something no myth had ever mentioned: the warship crying. Tears of pure light, energy leaking from cracks in its ancient armor, dripped through the sky like falling stars, each one formed not from damage but from memory, from the sorrow of reliving the last war against the darkness, the war that humans fought alone. The warship wasn't just fighting for Dravanis. It was fighting for the galaxy that never believed humans, the galaxy that ignored the warnings, the galaxy that mocked the myth. And now that galaxy finally understood. Humanity had never been weak. Humanity had never been harmless. Humanity had never been ignorant. Humanity had known the darkness was coming, and built this guardian to face it. And now the guardian fought, not for praise, not for revenge, but because the myth was true. When the silent human warship wakes, the universe bends, not from fear, but from hope, as the shredded remains of the shadow creature scattered across the burning sky of Dravanis like torn pieces of living darkness dissolving into the wind. The warship hovered in the air, glowing brighter than a newborn star, yet trembling like a wounded guardian holding on to life with the last strength in its ancient heart, and every alien who looked up felt a strange mix of terror and awe ripple through them, because the warship was not simply a machine fighting an enemy. It was a living memory fighting a nightmare, and in its glowing cracks, in its shaking hull, in its pulsing runes, they could feel its pain like a silent cry echoing across the soul of the planet. The sky remained dark where the creature had died, as if its presence had burned a permanent wound into the heavens, and for a moment, Dravanis stood still, silent, waiting to see if the warship would rise again or collapse into the desert like a fallen titan. Then, slowly, painfully, the warship tilted slightly to the side, its golden runes flickering, and a massive shudder passed through its body, as if it were breathing for the first time in thousands of years. Admiral Reeve pressed his forehead against the cold observation glass, tears finally escaping his eyes as he whispered, "You're still alive, you're still fighting, you stubborn, beautiful relic." And the warship answered with a soft pulse of warm golden light, gentle like a hand placed on a shaking shoulder, as if telling him, "I am here." But the moment of calm broke instantly when the scanners across the Senate hall began screaming, red alarms flashing like bleeding stars, and the screens filled with impossible readings. Multiple tiers forming in space above the planet, each one glowing with the same twisted energy the first creature carried. The aliens gasped, some collapsing in fear, some clutching each other, some whispering prayers to gods who had never heard them before, and the old archivist stared at the myth tablet in his trembling hands as new glowing lines carved themselves into its surface, ancient words rewriting themselves after centuries of silence, and he read them aloud with a voice cracking into a whisper. "Where one rises, many follow." The Senate froze. Every heartbeat stopped, and then the sky ripped open again. Not once, not twice, but 5 times. 5 enormous tiers split the atmosphere like claws tearing through the fabric of reality, and from each tier emerged another shadow creature. Some larger, some twisted, some with jagged wings or spiked tendrils or glowing void-like eyes, but all radiating the same hunger, the same cold that crushed the air and made the sun dim as if the darkness devoured light itself. Dravanis trembled as the 5 creatures spread across the sky, their bodies writhing like rivers of shadow, their movements unnatural, their presence suffocating, and the ground cracked under the weight of their psychic screams. The Senate screamed back, the entire hall shaking violently as symbols fell from the walls and energy shields flickered, and races that had never felt fear in millions of years now fell to their knees like frightened children. Admiral Reeves' breath caught painfully as he whispered, 5. They sent 5. They are testing us, testing it. And he looked up at the warship, still floating in the sky, still glowing with fading golden light, still breathing like a tired lion surrounded by predators. The 5 creatures roared in unison, their voices shaking the clouds apart, and they lunged toward the warship all at once, a wave of darkness crashing against a single island of light. The warship reacted, not with panic but with raw instinct. Its runes flashed bright gold, its cracked hull plates shifted back into place like ancient bones snapping into position, and it unleashed a shockwave of white-blue energy so powerful that it blew away the closest creature, sending it spiraling into the upper atmosphere. But the other 4 slammed into the warship from every side, wrapping their tendrils around its hull like serpents crushing their prey, dragging it downward once again toward Dravanes, their combined weight overwhelming the warship's damaged engines. The warship released another roar, louder this time, filled with pain and rage and memories of old battles fought in burning skies, and the shockwave pushed 2 of the creatures back, but the remaining 2 tightened their grip until the warship's metal groaned like a dying star cracking under pressure. Admiral Reeves screamed, "Let go of him! Let him go!" But his voice was drowned under the sound of the shadow creatures shrieking triumphantly as they dug deeper into the warship's armor, tearing long glowing wounds across its surface. But the warship did not give up. It pushed its engines to maximum, releasing flames so bright they turned the sky white, trying to break free, trying to rise again, trying to protect Dravanes to its last breath. And then something unexpected happened, something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. The warship's core opened. A glowing golden sphere, beating like a heart made of starlight, rose from inside the ship, brighter than any energy the Senate had ever seen. The creatures felt it too. They recoiled instantly, screaming in terror as they sensed the ancient power awakening. The warship, now glowing from the inside out, pushed all its energy into the core, and for a moment the entire universe seemed to pause. And then it exploded not in destruction, but in light. A tidal wave of golden brilliance erupted outward, tearing one creature apart instantly, reducing it to ash-like dust. The others screamed, blasted backward in agony, their bodies burning with cracks of light. Dravanes lit up like a second sun had risen above it, shadows evaporating from every corner of the world, storms vanishing, oceans calming. The old archivist burst into tears. The Senate fell silent. Even the remaining creatures hesitated, because now, for the first time, the warship was fully awake, completely awake, ancient, divine, terrifying, and with that awakening, the myth carved into the stone finally made sense. The warship did not bend the universe by force. It bent it by existing. It bent it by waking. It bent it by remembering what humanity had built it to do. And now, glowing like a god forged from grief and fire, the warship turned its gaze toward the remaining 4 creatures, its runes burning brighter than ever. Ready for the next battle, the moment the warship fully awakened, glowing like a blazing sun suspended in the dark sky, the air across Dravanes transformed. The clouds parted, the storms silenced, the atmosphere vibrated with a deep ancient energy, almost like the world was remembering something it had forgotten for thousands of years, and every alien heart beat faster, not from fear now but from a strange rising hope, because the warship no longer looked like a wounded guardian fighting for survival. It looked like a being carved from pure light, a living monument of humanity's forgotten strength. Yet even in its awakening, the threat still towered above the planet as the remaining 4 shadow creatures circled around it, their bodies twisting like rivers of darkness trying to smother a star, their cries filled with ancient hatred echoing across the sky like thunder from another universe. And Admiral Reeve pressed his shaking hands against the observation glass, whispering, "Come on, my friend, show them who you are," as tears streaked down his face, because he knew what awakening truly meant. He knew the warship was not just accessing power. It was reopening memories, reopening wounds, reopening pain that had been sealed for 10,000 years, and yet the ship rose higher, facing the four creatures with a calmness so terrifying that even the Senate, still trembling from the shockwave, felt a silent chill crawl down their spines. The first creature lunged, its massive claws stretching wide, but the warship did not move backward. Instead, it drifted forward slowly, almost gracefully, its core glowing brighter, and then with a burst of speed faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen, it shot through the creature's torso like a spear of golden light, ripping it apart in one clean, brutal blast that sent waves of burning shadow raining across the sky. The creature screeched its last silent cry as it dissolved into dust, and the Senate gasped as they watched a being feared across the cosmos die in seconds, defeated not by a weapon, but by the living force of a warship built on humanity's last tears. The second and third creatures attacked together, weaving their bodies into a spiral of darkness that tightened around the warship like a crushing vortex, shadows squeezing from all sides. But the warship responded by releasing rings of expanding light from its core, each ring chopping through layers of shadow, reducing the vortex into fragments of dying darkness. And with one final pulse, the warship shattered the spiral completely, sending shockwaves rolling across the entire planet as the two creatures were thrown back, their bodies cracking with lines of white heat. The fourth creature, the largest and the most intelligent of the swarm, hovered at a distance, studying the warship with cold, ancient eyes, its body trembling with anger, but also with something unfamiliar: fear. For the first time, these creatures of endless hunger had found something they couldn't devour, something they couldn't overpower, something that shone too bright, too strong, too alive. Dravanis shook again as the warship turned toward the fourth creature, its runes burning brighter, its armor plates locking into formation, its core pulsing in a slow, powerful heartbeat that echoed across the entire planet. And Admiral Reeve wiped his face, whispering, "You can do this? You've done it before." But even as he spoke, he noticed something terrifying. The warship's golden light was flickering. It wasn't weakening from fear or injury. It was weakening from exhaustion. Awakening had taken an enormous toll. Fighting the first creature had drained a portion of its ancient energy. Fighting 5 more was pushing it beyond its limits, and Reeve felt a cold pain in his chest as he realized the ship was running on borrowed strength, surviving on pure willpower, and every second of battle was a sacrifice. The warship drifted forward again, but slower now, its movements slightly uneven, like a titan trying to fight even as its legs trembled, and the fourth creature sensed this weakness instantly. Its body rippled with excitement as it opened its void-like mouth, revealing an endless black spiral inside, a hunger that stretched into infinity, and it lunged with such speed the sky ripped open behind it. The warship tried to dodge but couldn't move fast enough. The creature slammed into it with the force of a collapsing planet, wrapping all 4 of its massive tendrils around the warship's hull, crushing it, squeezing it, tearing cracks across its glowing armor as the runes flickered violently. Reeve screamed, "No, not again!" pounding the glass as if his fists could stop the creature, as if his voice could reach the warship, and the entire Senate watched helplessly as the warship's golden glow dimmed further, pieces of armor breaking off and falling like burning meteors toward the ground. The warship released a weak pulse, a plea, a whisper, a memory, and the creature tightened its grip mercilessly, trying to break the Guardian's core the way it had broken countless civilizations before. But then, the warship did something none of them expected. It did not push back. It did not unleash power. It did not roar. It simply remembered. Its runes lit up, not with battle energy but with images, thousands of ancient humans working together, smiling through exhaustion, crying through fear, holding hands as they built this warship with everything they had left, children touching its metal hull as if blessing it, old warriors resting against its foundation whispering, "Carry our love into the future." And the warship let those memories burn into its core. The fourth creature tightened its claws, determined to crush the ship once and for all. But the warship's heart ignited. A massive golden explosion erupted from inside the ship, not outward but inward, strengthening it, repairing it, filling it with a power so emotional, so human, that even the creature recoiled in confusion and pain. The warship's cracks sealed. Its runes glowed like molten sunfire. And with one final burst of ancient strength it blasted the creature backward, ripping half its body apart and sending it crashing into the upper atmosphere. Dravanes shook. The Senate screamed. Admiral Reeve fell to his knees, crying in both relief and agony, whispering, "You're killing yourself. You're burning your life away." Because he could feel it. The warship was using the last of its power. The three remaining creatures struggled to reform, shrinking, weakening, losing pieces of themselves, but they still lived, and the warship floated in the sky, burning like a star that knew it wouldn't survive the next hour. But it didn't retreat. It didn't slow down. It didn't show fear. It turned toward the swarm with the courage of humanity itself, ready to fight again no matter the cost. And as its golden light shook with exhaustion but still shone defiantly, every alien on Dravanes finally understood the truth behind humanity's ancient myth. The warship was never meant to bend the universe with power. It was meant to bend it with sacrifice. The warship hovered in the dark sky of Dravanes like a dying star fighting against the night, its golden light flickering, trembling, pulsing weakly as if every beat of its ancient heart cost it more than it could afford. And below it the planet held its breath because even though the warship had defeated 4 of the monstrous creatures, even though it had saved millions of lives in a battle that legends could never describe, the truth was visible to every trembling alien watching from the Senate Hall. The Guardian was fading, its strength leaking from cracked armor in streams of gold, its energy core struggling to maintain its glow, its ancient body shaking from wounds that went deeper than metal, deeper than time, deeper than memory itself, and Admiral Reeve felt that pain like fire inside his chest, because the warship was not just a relic, not just a myth, not just a weapon built long ago. It was a living memory of humanity, a final gift from a civilization that had died. Fighting the darkness alone, and seeing it now, fragile and exhausted, was like watching the last piece of humanity fall apart. The 3 remaining creatures sensed its weakness instantly. Shadow rippled across the sky like a rising storm, their bodies reforming with violent hunger, each one crawling with twisted tendrils dripping darkness onto the atmosphere as they circled the warship slowly, like predators taunting a wounded lion, waiting for it to collapse, waiting for the perfect moment to strike and devour the last guardian standing between them and Dravanes. One creature screeched, a piercing mental scream that shattered windows across the planet, and the warship flinched as its runes flickered dangerously, its glowing shields collapsing for a split second before stabilizing weakly, and Reeve, trembling, whispered through clenched teeth, "Don't you stop! Don't you dare stop! I'm here. I'm right here." But his voice was small compared to the terrible silence of the shadow creatures circling above, each one releasing another psychic pulse that pressed down on the warship like a crushing weight, trying to suffocate its remaining light. The warship answered with a weak hum, its golden core flickering like a heartbeat on the edge of death, its engines glowing faintly, its hull shivering under invisible pressure. And in the Senate Hall the old archivist whispered, "It can't win. It's too tired. It will die." But Admiral Reeve shook his head violently, slamming his fist against the railing, shouting, "No, it doesn't die. It doesn't give up. Humans never built anything that gives up." Yet even his own voice cracked with fear because he could see what the warship was hiding. Deep under its armor, beneath the glowing runes, its ancient power source was collapsing, its internal systems burning out, its life slowly fading like a candle suffocating in darkness. The creatures sensed the moment of weakness. All 3 lunged at once, their long tendrils slamming into the warship's hull, wrapping around its glowing core, pulling, crushing, draining, trying to rip the Guardian apart in one final coordinated attack. And Dravanes trembled violently, entire cities shaking as if the world itself felt the Guardian's pain. The warship screamed, an echoing, metallic yet heartbreakingly human cry that pierced every alien soul listening. A cry filled with 10,000 years of memories, battles, losses, and love. A cry that felt like the final breath of an ancient hero too stubborn to fall. And Admiral Reeve collapsed to his knees, gripping his chest, whispering, "No, no, no, please, not again, not like last time," as tears streamed down his face because he knew the scream, the same scream humanity heard in the final night of the last war before the Guardian fell into silence. The warship's golden light dimmed dangerously, fading into pale white, flickering like a dying flame struggling to stay alive. But even as the creatures crushed it, even as its armor cracked open, even as its core drained to almost nothing, the warship refused to surrender. Instead, its runes brightened for a moment, just a moment, with a faint warm glow, a glow that carried a memory that the entire planet felt at once. The image of a human standing inside the warship thousands of years ago, touching its heart for the last time, whispering, "Protect them even when you can't protect yourself." And that memory lit something inside the warship, something deeper than power, deeper than programming, something purely human. The warship exploded with a burst of light. Not an attack, not a weapon, but a desperate surge of life. An emotional scream turned into energy, pushing the creatures back just enough to breathe again, just enough to rise a little higher into the sky, just enough to survive another second. But it was not enough. The creatures recovered instantly, their bodies swirling with rage and hunger, their eyes glowing brighter as they regrouped for another strike, this time determined to end the Guardian fully. The warship floated weakly, its core dim, its runes fading, its armor cracked open like broken wings, and for the first time since awakening it trembled. Not in fear, but in sorrow, as if apologizing for not being strong enough, apologizing for the battle it could no longer carry alone. And then something happened. Something impossible. Something the myth never mentioned. The sky behind the warship lit up with a soft silver glow, and a second human warship emerged from hyperspace, silent, massive, ancient, glowing with silver-white runes that pulsed with fresh strength. The Senate gasped. Admiral Reeves' eyes widened with disbelief and hope as he whispered, "No! It can't be! Atlas II?" But it was. A second myth. A second Guardian. A second warship humanity built and hid across the galaxy. And as Atlas II positioned itself beside the wounded Guardian, its runes glowing, its weapons humming, its core burning with new life, the three shadow creatures froze, sensing the shift in power, sensing that the prey they thought they had cornered was no longer alone. The wounded warship flickered weakly, its light trembling with relief, and Admiral Reeve cried harder as he whispered, "You're not alone anymore. You don't have to die alone." And the sky trembled as Atlas II charged forward with the fury of a resurrected god, slamming into the nearest creature with a beam of silver fire that ripped the darkness apart. The myth was wrong because the myth told of one warship. Humanity built more, and the war had only just begun. The arrival of Atlas II tore through the darkness like a miracle wrapped in silver fire, and for a moment the entire sky of Dravanes felt alive again, as if hope itself had stepped onto a battlefield that had nearly fallen silent, and the wounded first warship, Atlas I, trembled with a soft flicker of recognition, like an ancient warrior seeing a long-lost brother return from death, its dim golden light brightening just enough to show it was still hanging on, still fighting, still refusing to surrender even as its armor cracked and its core flickered with exhaustion. And Admiral Reeve collapsed against the glass, crying in both relief and disbelief because in every myth, in every record, in every whispered tale, humanity had only ever mentioned one Guardian, one sleeping warship left behind to protect the galaxy, never hinting that a second existed, never revealing that humanity, in their final desperate nights, had built not one hope but two, and that second hope had now returned at the exact moment the universe needed it most. The three shadow creatures recoiled violently as Atlas II emerged fully from hyperspace, its silver runes glowing like moonlight carved into armor, its engines humming with clean, undamaged strength that made the air vibrate. And for the first time since the battle began, the creatures hesitated. Not out of fear but out of confusion, because they had expected the Guardian to be dying alone, expected the planet to fall, expected the myth to break under pressure. And instead they now faced a pair of awakened legends, one wounded but unbroken and the other newly risen, pulsing with the fury of 10,000 silent years. Atlas II wasted no time. It surged forward with a burst of silver light so blinding that every alien shield on Dravanes shut down to avoid burning out, and the warship slammed into the first creature with such force that the sky cracked open in a storm of glowing shockwaves, ripping huge pieces from the creature's dark body, sending them raining down like chunks of falling night that dissolved before touching the ground. The creature screamed, a horrible, echoing sound that shook the air. But Atlas II didn't stop, didn't hesitate, didn't allow a second strike. It unleashed a beam of pure silver energy straight through the creature's core, carving it in half, erasing its existence from reality as if it had never been born, and the Senate watched with wide, trembling eyes as the beast dissolved into a fading shadow, destroyed in seconds by a warship that had just awakened. But even as Atlas II turned toward the remaining two creatures, Atlas I drifted lower, its golden cracks leaking dimming light, its hull trembling like each breath was a battle, its ancient heart fighting to stay alive, and Reeve whispered through gritted teeth, "Stay with me? Please stay with me. Don't leave now, not now." As if his voice could somehow reach the Guardian, the remaining two creatures roared and lunged toward Atlas II, twisting into monstrous shapes filled with fury and desperation, their shadows stretching across the sky like grasping claws, but Atlas II answered their rage with calm, deadly precision. It spiraled upward, dodging attacks with movements too elegant for something so massive, firing long sweeping arcs of silver energy that carved through layers of shadow like blades slicing through smoke. And yet, the creatures were not weak. They struck back with psychic force that cracked the sky itself, slamming into Atlas II with thick tendrils wrapped in darkness, trying to crush it the same way they had crushed Atlas I moments earlier. And for a moment the silver warship faltered, its glow flickering as the two monsters pressed down with all their combined weight. That was when Atlas I moved. Wounded, dying, barely glowing, but still alive. The golden warship rose slowly, painfully, its engines flickering like candles in a storm. But it rose anyway, refusing to let Atlas II fight alone, refusing to let the galaxy fall, refusing to give up even as cracks spread across its armor like fractures in the shell of a dying star. And when it reached the height of the battle, it released a deep, soft hum, an exhausted, emotional sound that felt like a whisper across the entire planet. A whisper of love, of memory, of brotherhood. Something in Atlas II reacted instantly. Its runes flashed, shifting to match the pattern of Atlas I's hum, synchronizing, harmonizing, merging energy signatures like two hearts beating in the same rhythm. And suddenly the air around both warships transformed. They weren't fighting alone anymore. They were fighting together. Twin warships, silver and gold, ancient and wounded, perfect and cracked. Once separated by time and fate, now standing side by side as the galaxy finally saw the truth. Humanity did not leave behind one guardian. They left behind a pair, two warships meant to awaken not separately, but together, their powers woven like threads of a single forgotten song. And when the two warships aligned their cores, when golden light intertwined with silver fire, when their runes blazed in unison like symbols of hope reborn, the sky erupted. A combined blast of silver-gold energy, wider than mountains, deeper than oceans, brighter than stars, exploded outward, vaporizing one creature instantly and blasting the last remaining monster so far back into space that it shattered through layers of atmosphere, screeching with a fear no shadow being had ever experienced. But the blast had a cost. Terrible cost. Atlas I's glow dimmed almost completely, its core flickering like a fading heartbeat, its wings cracking apart, its structure bending as if it couldn't even hold its own weight anymore. It had given everything, every memory, every drop of strength, every remaining spark, to support that final attack. And Admiral Reeve felt it. He felt the warship slipping away like a final breath leaving a dying body, and he screamed, "No, please, don't you dare leave him," his voice breaking into sobs as the golden guardian slowly sank lower in the sky, its light flickering like dying embers. Atlas II rushed to its side, positioning itself beneath the falling warship, catching it gently with a soft pulse of gravity, holding its wounded brother like a soldier carrying a fallen comrade. And the silver warship released a faint glow, soft, warm, protective, curling around Atlas I like a comforting embrace. The last remaining shadow creature hissed from the edge of space, gathering strength for one final attack, its body trembling with rage and desperation, and the Senate panicked as readings exploded across their screens. But Atlas II didn't move away from Atlas I. It stood firm, holding its brother close, even if it meant taking the next attack alone. And the wounded Atlas I, flickering on the edge of death, gathered the last fragment of its fading light and pulsed it toward Atlas II. A message, a memory, a silent plea. And Atlas II answered that plea with a roar that split the atmosphere wide open. The final battle had begun. The sky of Dravanis trembled as the last surviving shadow creature stretched its enormous body across the upper atmosphere, its tendrils twisting like a hurricane made of pure darkness, its void-like eyes glowing with a hatred so ancient it felt older than the stars themselves, and Admiral Reeve, barely able to breathe, pressed both palms against the glass as he watched Atlas II hold up the dying Atlas I like a soldier carrying his wounded brother. The silver warship standing firm even though the creature's presence filled the air with crushing psychic pressure, shaking every building, every ocean, every mountain on the planet below. But Atlas II refused to let go, refused to abandon the warship that had fought alone for thousands of years, refused to move even an inch away from the guardian that had nearly given its life to save the galaxy, and the old archivist whispered through trembling lips, "The myth is not about war, it is about love." As tears streamed down his face, because even he could feel it, an emotion so powerful that it radiated from the two warships like a silent sun, binding them together, giving them strength even as Atlas I's light dimmed into a weak flicker. The shadow creature roared, a shattering scream that cracked clouds and shook the deep oceans, and with a furious surge it plunged downward, its massive form crashing through layers of sky like a meteor of living night, coming straight toward the silver warship and the dying guardian it protected. But Atlas II did not move, did not retreat, did not even flinch. Instead it tightened its gravity field, pulling Atlas I closer, wrapping it in a soft cocoon of silver light, as if whispering, "I've got you," and for a moment even the creature hesitated, confused by an emotion it had never encountered, sacrifice without fear. Then it attacked. The monster slammed its tendrils into Atlas II with the force of a collapsing star, tearing across the silver armor, sending ripples of dark energy ripping through its body. But Atlas II unleashed an explosion of silver flame, pushing the creature back for a moment, creating a circle of roaring light around both warships as if drawing a line the creature was not allowed to cross. But Atlas I could barely stay conscious. Its golden glow had become faint, shivering like a dying ember, its armor cracked open like broken stone, its core flickering in and out as if every beat drained what little life it had left, and Reeve, choking on his own breath, whispered, "Please, please don't die, not now, not after everything." But he could feel it. The warship was fading, slipping away like a final whisper in the wind. The creature roared again, gathering the full strength of its dark body into one final devastating strike, its tendrils stretching wide, crackling with pure void energy capable of tearing planets apart. And Dravanis trembled violently as the creature lunged forward, determined to erase the last guardians once and for all. Atlas II responded instantly, firing every weapon, every beam, every last reserve of silvery power in a blinding storm of energy. But even that was not enough. The creature pushed through, its body tearing apart but still moving, still striking, still unstoppable in its hunger to destroy the final hope of the galaxy. Atlas II braced for impact, but Atlas I moved first. With a flicker of golden light that should not have been possible for a ship so damaged, so weak, so close to death, the ancient guardian surged forward, breaking free from Atlas II's protective gravity field, using the last spark of its core to place itself directly between the creature and Atlas II, taking the full force of the monster's attack into its already broken body. The impact was catastrophic. A shockwave of darkness and gold fire tore through the sky, splitting clouds, cracking the atmosphere, and shattering sound itself into ringing silence. And Admiral Reeve screamed in agony as Atlas I's entire body convulsed under the hit, golden armor ripping apart, runes shattering like glass, the core cracking open like a heart breaking under unbearable strain. But even as its hull tore apart, even as its final glow began to fade, Atlas I held the creature in place, held it with pure will, pure emotion, pure memory of the humans who built it, whispering in its fading consciousness, "I will protect them, even if I die." Atlas II reacted with the fury of a god. Its silver light surged to maximum, its core igniting like a newborn star, its runes burning with blinding white fire. And with a roar that shook the universe itself, it unleashed a beam of pure silver-white energy so powerful it carved a glowing line through the sky, blasting straight into the creature while Atlas I held it open, exposing its core. The creature shrieked in terror, true terror, as the beam tore through its body, ripping the darkness apart layer by layer, dissolving its form into billions of particles of fading shadow until nothing was left but silence, golden dust, and a sky torn open by light. Dravanes shook. The stars flickered. The war was over. But the victory came with a price. Atlas I, the Golden Guardian, the first myth, the ancient protector who fought alone for 10,000 years, finally collapsed, its golden glow dying out as the cracked pieces of its hull drifted apart, its runes fading into darkness like the last heartbeat of a fallen titan, and Admiral Reeve fell to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably, whispering, "No, no, please, please get up, please don't go," as if his words could hold onto a dying star. Atlas II rushed forward, wrapping its silver wings around the falling pieces of Atlas I, gathering them gently, refusing to let them scatter, holding its dying brother in the softest embrace a warship could give. And it released a pulse of silver light so gentle, so heartbreakingly soft, that every alien on the planet felt tears rising in their eyes. In that moment, the galaxy understood something humanity tried to teach them long ago. Strength was not measured by weapons, but by love. Victory was not shaped by power, but by sacrifice. And legends were not written by gods, but by hearts brave enough to break for others. Atlas I, glowing faintly one last time, pulsed a small message through the air. A whisper of gold light that drifted into Atlas II's core like a goodbye kiss, and then its light went out forever. Dravanes fell silent. The battle was won, but the Guardian was gone. And as Atlas II held the broken remains of Atlas I against its silver hull, releasing a long, trembling hum filled with sorrow so deep it made the entire sky weep, Admiral Reeve whispered through tears. The myth was right. The warship did bend the universe, but it bent it with its heart. And far above the planet, the silver warship lifted its fallen brother toward the stars, carrying the last piece of humanity's oldest legend back into the quiet sky, where heroes sleep.